Yeah, this album is dedicated to all the teachers that told me I never amount to nothing. I'm coming home. Tear the world down, coming home. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine.
We're live.
It worked.
Rise and grind, baby. We're here. We're doing it. My name is Danielle Laurie with my co-host Alex Gomez. We are putting out our first episode, and to be honest, I was like I'm not going to say super nervous because I was at the ballpark for 11 and a half hours yesterday with Maddie's softball, but this whole week, I don't know about you, it's just like this, like nervous, anxious. Like you want this to be great. You want to give people a good show, but you're also like, God, are we doing it the right way? Is it going to be what we want it to be? So it's been a week in my dome a little bit about it. And I mean, you can only prep so much for doing a podcast, right? When we're going on the field, there's a different type of prep. So I don't know how you've been feeling this week, but I've been kind of nervous, anxious energy.
I think it's the same. Again, Alex Gomez here, and I feel the same. I think, when we kind of started talking about this and brainstorming, it's like the beauty of podcasts and live stuff like this, material, content, whatever you want to call it, is that's the whole point, right? Is like it's supposed to be kind of off the cuff, and we can sit here and like plan for it as much as possible. But once you're like in it, I think we're both so passionate about this and want it to be such a good resource for people that like we're invested like already. And that's always not scary, but it's a big step to be this invested in something. So I think it just shows like how much we care. So hopefully people can feel that when they listen. But
amen.
Yeah.
Well,
excited.
So for today's episode, before I do just like a slight introduction, we kind of wanted to highlight it could be three impactful things throughout our life. It could have been something from our athletic careers. It could have been something to do with our kids, whatever it may be. So before we kind of deep dive into that, for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Danielle Laurie. I guess just softball player when you look at it in the big picture of things. 37 years old. I've been playing this game for a long time. Started out 10, 11, and then was fortunate enough to, get the opportunity to play at UW, and opportunities came with national team and have been able to do some Olympic stuff, and fortunate enough to still be around the game through the analyst lens with ESPN. But I think bigger picture thing for me is like having a couple kids that are in the youth sports stuff. So to be able to kind of go into that as far as things that I've learned and loved throughout this upbringing of mine, and how I can help kind of impact and raise strong ass females that can conquer life, not only sports, but that's the beauty of sport for me, right? Like it really gives you this different pep in your step to take on the world, because life is hard, as we know. So that's kind of a little bit of jazz on me. Live in Seattle, Washington. Been here since 2015, and yeah, got a pretty great life. So happy. I'm happy about it.
No, that's good. I mean, I feel like we can look back now and it's like, it's crazy to think about these different periods in your life, and like there's so much impact that each of them has. And like you get to this point where you look back and you're just like, when did this all happen? Like, what the heck? But yeah, just to kind of go off of that with my own little bit of a background, my name's Alex Gomez. I was a Geary when I played. Back in 2008 to 2012, I was on the University of Hawaii softball team. I'm originally from Southern California. Went and played there for 4 years, and then moved to Northern California. Got married straight out of college, and my husband was in the Air Force, so he was stationed up there. So we were up there for about 12 years, and recently moved to Dallas, Texas. So I'm coming to you from the kind of the South. I don't know if you'd consider Dallas the South. But yeah, got 4 kids now, and kind of had a lot of pivots professionally. So graduated college, was teaching and coaching for a couple years, then became a full-time coach at the Division II level, and then also the Division I level at UC Davis. So kind of had a couple milestones there, and then stepped away from coaching. I still work full-time, but I work remote from home, and I do the color commentary for UT Arlington now for the last 2 seasons. So
Yeah.
both still very connected. But like you said, popped out a couple kids and am now
Four kids.
Yeah, just four. And just navigating now the other side of the tape, the chalk, whatever you want to call it, like having to be on that side of things. So it's definitely a different landscape. And I think what's so great about this is for the both of us, it's like that transition from being a college athlete into now these new roles as like moms and cheerleaders and you know, full-time Uber drivers everywhere. It's just been it's crazy. So that's going to be definitely one of the things we talk about a lot. But like Danielle was saying today, our goal is to kind of give you guys a little bit more into like who we are as people, and like hopefully something that we've experienced is something that you can relate to or you're interested in hearing more about. We've had some pretty amazing experiences, and we're both super lucky and blessed for that. And I think it's fun to share that stuff and feel like we're a part of something bigger. So
yeah. To go back to the Uber drivers, I don't get paid though to do it, and I don't get any tips or nothing.
I just get a lot of bad comments, a lot of bad reviews, right?
A lot of bickering. It's fine.
Arguing about the song selections.
Hey, we got one radio station in this car, and it's the Bridge on Sirius XM. So my kids will be well versed in the old school mentality. This new music these days is not.
Oh no, yeah.
No.
We go through like a country playlist. We'll go through a 70s funk for grandpa playlist that they really like. But yeah, no, there's no new age
No way.
music in our car. They try real hard though.
Yeah.
But yeah, to start, we talked about going through a couple of the moments that stand out the most to us throughout our careers, throughout our life. So I'd love to hear what your first one is, since you left me on the edge of my seat all this time.
Yeah. So I was sitting at the game yesterday, and I had my girlfriend's book, who I'm trying to read, Bailey, and I like nuggets on the back. And I was like really sitting there, and I'm like, okay, 3 big things. Like, I've experienced so much in life and sport, but I always go back to sport and like those moments, right? And the first one that I have was when I had got selected. I was 15 years old, and it was to play with the junior national team, the U19 and under. And the junior coach was at one of my games. I was 15, and she came up after, and she goes, "We really want you to like compete and be on the team. Be leaving in 5 weeks. We're going to go to Nanjing, China. And we want you to be a part of it." And at 15, I wasn't in the recruiting process yet. I'm Canadian.
Right.
Softball is life. So was other sports. But like for me as a Canadian kid, like, and not having access to television like it is now with ESPN, I didn't know about all those other things. Right. So, you know, of course it's this anxious, excited, like, yes, I want to do it. Right. My dad was there. He was so jacked. And so I had 5 weeks to just train my ass off to try to put myself in a position to play with girls that were 4 years older. Right.
Right.
But what I did not realize, that playing with women that are 4 years older than you, that have been together on this team, grinding through tryouts and conditioning and all of that, have this connectiveness that I'd never felt like I was a part of. Right. So what I will say is work my tail off those 5 weeks to put myself in a position to just be able to go there and help the team. And my parents dropped me off at the airport that morning. And I remember being like, you know, that doubt, like, I don't want to go. I'm 15, going to another country. The girls on the team, like, I'm not really friends with them. I'm by myself. And I remember my dad and mom, like, this was the old school Discman days. They gave me this James Taylor CD and was just like, hey, if there's ever a time where you're over there and you feel like you're disconnected, like, just play the "You've Got a Friend" song, reminds you of home, keeps you grounded. God, I must have listened to that song 100 times on that trip, because it opened my eyes to being on a team where I can't sit here and say that they were jealous because I was 15. It seemed more like they didn't want you there. Like they wanted no part of me being a part of that team, because they'd been grinding, and here I am getting this opportunity.
Just like popping in. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I think the one thing that I learned throughout that trip was that at the end of the day, the competitor in me, you can't ever take that piece away. That taught me to be able to deal with playing with women that even though they don't like you, to be able to like utilize the grind that we've done to get us to that position to be successful. If I can go out there and I can perform, ultimately I'm going to gain the respect of my teammates.
Right.
And there were people saying prior to me even like getting the opportunity to go there, like, you're going to go, you're never going to play. Like, you're playing with people that have been doing it for 4 years. And what I've always loved about my upbringing and what I've learned from my mom and dad, especially my dad, it's like, if someone tells you you can't do something, like, I'll be damned.
Right.
And so for me, that opportunity is what opened up me to get recruited. Like, that was when Monica Abbott was just with Team USA on the U19 team. And that was when Tennessee stuff was big for her. And she was, you know, going to be playing there. And ultimately that was where Ken Erickson with Team USA, that's where people realized kind of who I was. And it put me in a position for a Canadian kid to get the opportunity to potentially get looks from these US teams. And I remember like Erickson and these coaches coming up to me like, oh, are you interested to play in the US? And I'm like, what? Like, that's like an option? Like,
I can do that?
Back in like 2001, 2000, like, we didn't know about those things. So that trip, I look back and it could have went two ways. It could have went like, absolute bail. I want no part of this. I become internal. I look at this as, is this what this game is about? I'm out. Or I can look at that as an opportunity to grow and thrive and say, hey, if you don't like me, that's fine. Obviously, I wish I would have learned some things earlier in life with how to maybe be a better teammate, but I was 15. But it made me learn how to deal with the mean girl piece. And ultimately, the competitor on the field, and when you cross those lines, it's go time, whether someone likes you or not. So to me, that was a very big trip that opened up this can of worms to put me in a position to potentially play at the collegiate level. So tough lessons learned, but the best lessons learned. So
yeah, that's so cool too, because it's like you're a 15-year-old kid, like just getting into, like, you love softball, of course, like you're enjoying it and stuff, but like to have that door opened for you in a way where you can go pursue that in a way you didn't know was possible.
Yeah,
it's like one of those pinch me moments for sure. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Tell me yours.
What?
I said, tell me yours.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
No.
I resonate with the mean girl piece too, because I definitely had my fair share of that. And I feel like it almost comes with the territory of being an elite athlete, is that it's not hesitation. It's just like that. I don't even know if it's judgment or if it's just jealousy mixed with like almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Like territory thing. Like, right? Like, this is my territory, this is my turf, and you're coming in here, and I don't know if you're good or not yet. I would hope so, since you're apparently on my team now. But at the same time, it's so we get like, women are like that. Like, that's just how we operate, right? Like, we're so territorial for each other, and like, I don't know, people say like guys are very like, I feel like women are so much worse, because we like puff our chests out a little bit, like we walk a little different, like, who is this? Right? Like, what's going on? So I totally get that. I would say that my moment was getting the scholarship to play college. Similar to you, started playing travel like around 10 and 12, like 6th grade, middle school-ish, where it got really serious. And was on a couple different teams travel-wise. Southern California obviously is like bursting at the seams with competitive teams, and went through my fair share of like problems, right? Like, you've got teams where like everybody's elite and you never play, and then you have teams where everybody sucks and you play all the time. And I ended up on a travel team where I was about to walk away from playing softball, because I had had such bad experiences up to that point, including the mean girl situations like at high school and stuff like that. So I was ready to walk away and be done. And I got these two coaches, both of them were named Jim. One was Big Jim and one was Little Jim. And they really just reintroduced me to the love of the game and just took that pressure off of me. And it just allowed me to really like flourish and grow. And I think that it gave me the confidence I needed to like understand that I was capable of the next level, and that I brought something different to the table. And like, what made me unique as a player is what some coach somewhere would want.
Yeah.
And I had a couple different offers going into my senior year, but it wasn't until the spring of my senior year, which is super late to make your decision, that I got news from Coach Bob at UH that I was getting that scholarship. And I had held out for so long. We kind of talked about this before. People were like in my ears chirping, basically saying like, you can't wait. He's holding you out. He's stringing you along. You're not going to get a scholarship. But to me, like that moment of clarity of knowing, like I went on my visit there and I just knew, like you get this like almost at peace knowing, like I was walking around campus and it was just like, this is it. Like, this is where I want to be. And I think just having that like reaffirmation from him saying like, all right, we got the money, like you're going to be able to do this. Because for me, like if I didn't get a scholarship, I wasn't going to college. Like there was no other option.
Yeah.
Just based off of like our finances as a family, like it just wasn't going to happen. And so for me to go away and like make that decision, that was a big step in the direction of like, this is it. Like this is going to be the next 4 years of your life. And yeah, I mean, best decision I ever made, aside from my husband, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, true. It's crazy, this sense of like, nowadays all these athletes for the most part feel wanted because they don't have a choice with where the college game is at, right? Like, but back in the day for us, like we didn't, I mean, I can't speak for you, but like kind of even to roll into my next one, like I didn't have the picks of all the top 10 schools,
Right.
like that.
Oh yeah.
That wasn't it. So when you felt like, when you said, when, you know, coach told you that opportunity, that scholarship was there, to feel that piece of knowing you held out when others maybe pressured you to feel a certain way and you feel wanted, dude, way different. Like, I'm going to go and I'm going to work my ass off for you because you want me and you want to invest in me.
Right.
And, you know, even going back to when you thought about quitting, but then you go with this new team and big gym, little gym, like the importance of having coaches that know how to coach you to that point where there's this inner belief that regardless of the failure and the pressures and
like
the
wherever you're at. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
They can bring something out of you that instills this confidence in being a female athlete, because it's different. You have a lot of dudes in the game sometimes that don't know how to coach that piece up because simply they can't relate.
Right.
But the ones that do are the special ones, right? Like, and even like at UW with Lance Glasso, when we got him in the mix, there was just this piece where he believed in me to the point where I could run through a wall. I felt this confidence. So I love that. I love hearing that. I think, you know, when you think about parts where we maybe want to quit, like what keeps you going, right? So that's cool. Thank you for sharing. Because I'm going to kind of roll right into the college stuff too. Like, there was only 3 schools that were interested in me playing. And, you know, I sent a lot of stuff out too. Like I sent and did the whole in the mail, write all your stuff.
We're going to revisit that for sure, because when we had to send out those tapes,
Dude,
you couldn't just send a YouTube link. You couldn't just send them like a link to a profile that was like all pretty and made up for you. Like we were physically putting these things in envelopes and mailing them out with a stamp. Like we're definitely gonna talk about that at some point.
And denied. And it's discouraging. You know, the top 3 schools, there was a couple other ones, like Cal State Fullerton was in the mix with Coach Gromacki, and but the big 3 schools for me was University of Washington, the University of Nebraska, and the University of Alabama. But the twist is the University of Nebraska and Alabama, there was a Canadian tie, right? Patrick Murphy was involved with Team Canada, and he was around us. So he had saw me at a younger age and saw the potential that I had. And then the same thing with Lori Sipple with the University of Nebraska. So, you know, I had the Canadian piece with those 2 schools. And, you know, I'm going to leave UW for last. Nebraska came on a home visit. Rhonda Revelle, Lori Sipple came to my house.
Real
old school. VCR old school. We're talking, we got the putting in the tape. We have Peaches James popping up on my TV. I'm sitting there. They're telling me everything I want to hear. Like my mom made my favorite dish, all the things. And you know what is the weirdest thing? Throughout this whole process and how magical that moment was supposed to be, I could not get the pit in my stomach away of knowing there's no way that I want to go there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a personal thing. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate that they came and did this, or that they weren't super sweet and telling me everything I wanted to hear. Ultimately, to me, it was, I don't want to go to Nebraska and live in Nebraska and be away from my family.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the one thing that I've always known throughout this whole process is they've been there every step of the way, right? And have helped tailor me into the athlete that I was. And so for me thinking, and obviously the game has evolved in the sense where everything's on television now. You can watch your kids compete, doesn't matter what conference they're at on ESPN, but back in the day they couldn't. And I'm with you. My family didn't have the financial means, number one, to have to put up the money if I didn't get an athletic scholarship. And number two, being Canadian, being able to hop on a plane and fly constantly from Canada to the US to watch me compete. So, you know, the one thing about this whole process, my parents were so great in letting me choose.
Yeah.
You know what? We're not going to pressure you. You've earned this right. You make this decision for yourself. So Nebraska ended up leaving. You know, my mom's cleaning the kitchen. I'm just kind of sitting in there, and we kind of start going to bed, and I just like get up out of bed and I go in my parents' room, and I'm just like, yeah, there's no way that I can go to Nebraska. And I felt this exhale from my parents, like, oh, okay, good. Like,
thank goodness.
I don't know if it was that they didn't want their baby girl to go away, and they probably felt that sense too, but that was before UW was even in the mix. But it just felt good. So I had to make the phone call and call them, and all is good. But the hard part for me was how bad Patrick Murphy wanted me to go to Bama. And I didn't even want to go on a visit, Alex. I didn't want to go because I knew, and this was when Washington was in and around the mix. I knew that like I couldn't go.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of the same reasons, but also it's just, and it's hard to describe that feeling of just, I just don't see myself. It's not even just like being there. It's like thriving there. And it's just maybe not that right combination. Like we talked about the coaches, and it's nothing against the coaches that are there. It's just, that's not the mix for me. That's going to help me become the best player I can be. Yes. And that's so hard to differentiate. I can't even imagine now with the types of offers and things that they're throwing at these athletes. That's got to be such a harder, like, differentiation to make, right? Yeah. Like, hey, 1 million or 2 million.
That's what I'm saying. If we got $1 million in the mix, I don't know, maybe it might have been different.
Yeah.
Because I could have flown my family to and from.
Right? We could have just like, oh, we have a private jet. What are you talking about? Like,
but the hardest thing, and the one thing that I respect my dad a lot for, is like you know, parents don't make a lot of phone calls for kids in regards to them making decisions. And my dad was like, you got to call Patrick Murphy and you got to tell him.
Yep.
And I was dreading it. And I picked up the phone and I called and I said, you know, Coach Murphy, like, thanks so much for this opportunity, but I don't feel like I can make that commitment. And God, he was mad at me. So like, you didn't even give us a chance. You didn't even come and take a visit. Like, we could have shown you so many things. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, maybe if I went back in time, I would have went and taken that visit.
Just to go,
to go and experience what it was. But, you know, to me, living in Tuscaloosa at the time, being away from everything that I knew, it didn't seem like the right fit. And I wanted to save him the trouble from investing in me, knowing I didn't want to make that commitment. And he was mad at me for a good amount of time because the recruiting process gets dicey. You invest in these kids, you want them. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine how much I would put into a kid. And if they didn't want me, like, I don't love that. So he was mad, but I respected the fact that my dad made me call and have that big girl conversation.
That adult conversation, yeah.
Yeah. And then it made my recruiting trip to UW, and when I saw them in person for the first time at the Canada Cup, that much more special. Like, they walked in those Barney purple suits, and I felt so proud sitting in the stands knowing that, like, they were there to talk to me. Mm-hmm. And that was Coach Heather Tarr got the Washington job. She was at Pacific. She was named that coach, the head coach at the University of Washington. And the next day, she was on her way to come and recruit me. And that was a unique, special feeling in itself. And then I'm like, man, this is like an hour 40 from where my mom and dad live.
Yeah.
They said everything they needed to say to woo me, but I knew I wanted to go there no matter what. Like, I just Oh, you're talking about top 10 school. You're talking about a team that's been knocking at the door at trying to win a national championship. Like, you check off all these boxes, and recruiting trip was amazing. Different coaches from when we won the national championship in my senior year, because we had Eve Gaw and Jeff Herai, but making that change and getting Lance in the mix was just everything I needed, I think, after that Olympic year, which made me thrive on a whole other level. But I am the person I am because of that decision. That's why I wanted to wear this like sick Washington tee, and why I wanted to live here and raise my kids here, because that university impacted me in more ways than I think anyone can even understand. The success on the field's awesome, but the day-to-day grind and the people you do it with is what makes it chef's kiss,
so
right?
much different, right? Yes,
So
1,000%. And you're still so ingrained in that school. Like, it's such a huge part of your family and like your day to day, like, because you feel that connection and that loyalty to them.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Like, you can't ask for more than that. Like, to be that type of an alumni and still just want to be there as much as you possibly can to support and root for them and stuff. Like, that doesn't always happen, especially now. Like, and again, we'll revisit this later, but like, you have people who have been to 4 different universities in 4 different years. Ugh. So that blows my mind.
Yeah.
But similarly, in that I chose Hawaii, there really wasn't as much of an opportunity for my family to come watch, because obviously we're on an island.
Yeah.
But we were back then it was the WAC, right? So the Western Athletic Conference back then was a lot different than it is now too. So we played in the Vegas tournament every year. We played in the Mary Nutter in Palm Springs every year. So that was huge, because I knew we'd be home close to SoCal for those big tournaments. In Vegas, like, everybody wanted to come watch me in Vegas. It's Vegas.
Yeah.
And then we also played Fresno was in the conference at that point. Fresno State, San Jose State was in the conference at that point. So there were still California teams where it was still possible for people to come watch me. But we also had like, it was just such a random conference. Like, we had Boise State, Utah State, Louisiana Tech, New Mexico State. Dang. So it was a really oddball conference. But those couple of California, like, that was huge for me. It was like, people can still come watch. And so I think that was a huge part of it too, was knowing that I'd have at least those few games to look forward to have people there. Yeah. But my second moment would definitely be that 2010 run, obviously. Mm-hmm. We were on the road, I want to say, for almost 50 days straight.
Dang. I did not know that.
So we left Hawaii for the tournament, the conference tournament. Yeah. So that's early May. Yeah. And we were in New Mexico. We won the tournament, went straight to Stanford for the regional, won the regional, went straight to Bama for the super.
Was it Missy Penna? Was Missy Penna in 2010?
At Stanford?
Yeah. Missy Penna was there when I was there. I couldn't.
That's a good question.
No, I think she graduated.
Was crazy, well, and I probably don't remember, because we didn't even play Stanford in the final for the regional. Oh, they got knocked out on Saturday. Yeah, exactly. So we played somebody Friday. I don't even know. We played Friday. Saturday, we beat Stanford, and then they lost the second game Saturday night. So we ended up playing Texas Tech for the final on Sunday. So we beat them, went to Bama for the super regional. We all know how that ended. And then ended up in Oklahoma. We went straight to Oklahoma. So we were on the road for those 4 weeks, 4.5 weeks, whole time. Took our finals on the road, all that stuff. And my moment specifically was like, we beat Missouri the first day. Nobody thought we were going to do anything, because we barely made it in beating Bama. And so we beat Missouri. We're playing UCLA Friday night. Mm-hmm. I grew up in SoCal. So playing against UCLA, this team that I had gone and watched and I was like a Stacey Newman, like #1 fan, like just obsessed with UCLA growing up. Like, it broke my heart that I was never, ever going to go there. And so like, there's just like that moment when you're on the field with them and you're like, I'm playing this team that I've watched my whole life. Yeah. And it was Langenfeld, and I had the 17 pitch at bat. And I just remember like this calm, like I just was like having fun. Like, I rewatch that and I still get goosebumps, because like I know how like I was just having fun. Like, it was just so much fun to be on that field. And it ends with a home run. And it was just like this moment of like, it was just crazy. It was so insane. Like, you can't even like put into words. And I remember specifically after that game, like, Coach Bob does not hand out compliments. Like, they don't ever come.
Yeah.
Maybe more now that he's like in his older age, but like, we didn't ever get compliments. That was not a thing. And we got to the tent afterwards, and I remember him like getting ready to talk, and he just turned to me and he said, that was the most epic at bat I've ever seen.
Aw.
And it was just like that moment, like kind of like you said, like, not only was I wanted, but I was like, I did it. Like, this is it. Like, I could retire. Like, we're good. That could be done. Like, it's fine. But that at bat, I just remember, like, I mean, you've got like our fans in the stands, like screaming, like everybody was cheering for Hawaii. Like, it was so cool to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I think part of like my backstory for that is, so Mike and I did long distance our entire 4 years while I was gone at Hawaii. So he stayed at home, and then he joined the Air Force while I was gone.
Yeah.
And so he left for basic training at the beginning of that season. So January 2010, he went to basic training for the Air Force.
Okay.
So I have not seen or heard from him like more than 2 phone calls that whole 6 months.
Dang.
And then we started this World Series run. So he's in Texas doing his training and stuff. We get to the super regional, and we're sitting there arguing about, like, he's like, do I come? Like, do I take the time off? Because he can only get leave for so much time. So he's like, do I go to Bama? Because you're probably going to lose. That's just so I can see you.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, don't do it. Like, save the time. If we make it, we make it. Like, it'd be so much cooler to see you in Oklahoma. We win. We go to Oklahoma. He drives up, and like, as he walked into the stadium Friday night, because he couldn't leave, he's in his blues.
Yeah.
Like, full blown. He saw that at bat, and it was like the first time I'd seen it. Like, it was crazy. Like, it was just like every movie moment that you can like possibly, like, that's what it felt like. It was just like that, like, field of dreams, like, emotional moment. So that run for us, obviously the home runs were great, like the winning was great, but I feel like that at bat, specifically being against UCLA, just meant so much more to me, because like, I'm a huge UCLA fan. Like, I've talked, I mean, it's just one of those moments. So
Gosh, that's special.
Yeah.
That run you guys did, dude. I mean, I was glued to the TV watching that Supers, and I was going to compete against your team in the World Series. But you kind of have those teams that you like root for and watch, and you're like, damn, they're good, dude. Like, they're good. And you guys were, and we obviously didn't match up against each other at the World Series. We played against each other at, your guys' Hawaii tour.
Yeah.
But that was a cool thing. I can't imagine. Like, I knew a different run, obviously, with our national championship run, but like, yours is similar in the sense of like a team that wasn't expected to do what they did. And I think that's what you can look back on. And yeah, championship's super cool, and that's the biggest thing. But at the end of the day, I tell everyone, it's enjoying the journey. It's not rushing to get to the destination, because you don't always get to go where you want to go. And if you don't enjoy where your feet are and that part of your process, you're just going to be disappointed at the end. So was such a fan of your team with that whole run, even us being in and around the same age. Fangirl. That's special.
It was crazy. Like, and I just remember I remember too, like, specifically, you know how they have like the pre-tournament events where they like announced that you got like National Player of the Year. Like, we were sitting there, and we were the new guys, right? Like, we were the newbies at this whole thing, and they're like, oh, you guys have to dress up Western. Like, that's the theme.
Oh, it was the concert. They did the concert on the field.
And Hawaii was the only one. We all went to the mall, because we're talking Hawaiians here who don't own a flannel t-shirt or jeans, right? So we have to all go shopping beforehand, because our media person's like, no, you guys have to dress up. Like, they said there's a dress code. We show up in these flannels. We look ridiculous. Everybody else is in like their team gear. And we were like, cool.
Team gear. Yo, you guys are the ones that like got tricked into like the Halloween party where everyone says they're going to dress up in the scary costumes, but they literally have no clothes on. You guys come like dressed as, that's great.
exactly what happened. And then I specifically remember you like walking up the aisle to like get your award, and you just had like your game face on, and you were just like, I have to face all of you guys like tomorrow. So we're just not, you just were like already in the zone. Like you could,
what's so crazy is that's another episode to talk about, but little did everyone know that was the most pressure and hardest year of my entire life, that senior year after
the national championship.
Yeah. Yep. There was so much shit going on internally, and not good or bad. I just think
it was a lot.
Oh, it was a lot. And winning that award was super cool, but that was never like in the moment you want it really bad, but I never chased that piece. And I didn't even think I was going to win after kind of what happened in our super regional with Oklahoma, where we lost, and I had given up those 3 home runs to Amber Flores. Like, I was like, there's no way that I'm a candidate for this. Like, I've shit the bed. We won, but like, it wasn't a good look. And I'd get anxious being up there in front of everyone. Like, I don't like the pitching piece is different because everyone's looking at you. I didn't love that everyone was always looking at me.
Yeah.
I was such a team. And I learned to grow and evolve into that through my Canadian national team experiences. But I remember kind of shaking in my boots a little bit, being like, damn, everyone's looking at me. Now there's the biggest friggin' target on my back because they hate the people that get these awards. Bitch won it last year. Like, I think of all these things, and I usually use that as fuel, but it's
intimidating. It is. You're literally surrounded by the best people in the game.
And they don't like you.
And you've had it even on a magnified level of the Olympics, but it's like for college players, which is already only 2% of all players get to that point. So it's like for us to be around the best of the best, which in that scenario, it was super big imposter syndrome, right? Like nobody expected us to be there. We didn't know what we were doing. And to just like soak that in and like feel like just that it's like a presence almost of these like elite like legends. Like that's what they were. We're all like, they were legends. Like you guys are legends. It's crazy.
I know, it still feels like when I talk about it with people, it's like it was yesterday. It was a really long time ago, but I don't know if that like ego piece in the best way always stays with you, where you feel like you can go back in time and you remember the steps it took to get to that point. That will always give you this confidence in your everyday life because you've done hard shit. Yeah. And not a lot of people can say that they've been able to have those types of runs at this level. Everyone's striving for it day in and day out, but not everyone gets to live some of those moments. And I am national championship or not. And you could probably say the same with the run that you guys had or not. Like you're forever, grateful for those experiences that allow for you to live your life and help parent your kids the way you can. It just gives you a different confidence.
Yeah,
for
different
sure.
Perspective, different experience. Yeah.
Yeah. God, that's cool. That run was one of the best.
Yeah.
I wanted us to play in the World Series, but
I did too. That would have been so cool. But
I know we were 2 in Q.
Really? I knew you guys lost the first one. I didn't think it was the second one too. We lost to UCLA Friday, and then we lost to Arizona Saturday, and then they ended up in the finals. So it was like, okay. Kenzie Fowler hit me with the pitch. Yeah, that hurt.
Kenzie, yeah. We lost Georgia, and then we lost to Arizona. And I remember Mike Candrea hugging me after we lost, and honestly feeling okay. Like I felt like there was so much pressure lifted off my shoulders after we lost that game, and I want to win more than anyone. But in that moment in time when he hugged me and he just said, like, congrats on your career. You're one of the toughest that we've faced. It just gave me this inner peace that it's already written, the UCLA mentality they had this year, like what was meant to be was going to be, Yeah.
1,000%. I think you get to that point and you're just like, that was one thing, like as when I switched into the coaching thing, it was like, all you want to do at the end of this, whatever your next step is you want to be able to hang those cleats up and walk away and know that like, I took everything I could. I left it all on the field. Like, I'm good. I can walk away with this with no regrets, right? Like, that's the epitome of like a successful career to me. Like, no matter what you end up doing, like that's a big deal.
Yeah, and not to go off track too much, but like that's what I say to anyone that I come in contact with that is getting the opportunity to play in college. I'm like, dude, you get 4 years to maximize your potential and be great.
Yep.
And before you know it, you're already halfway done. And when you're halfway done, it's scary because you're like, what legacy have I left, or what mark have I left? And that's always the advice that I give them, because you think it lasts a long time, but in all reality, 4 years goes by so quick. And you're right, you can't look back and regret anything. You want to hang it up knowing I've worked harder than I ever thought I could, and I've done the little things. I'm a good teammate, which the game is different now, I think, with individual stuff more than it's ever been. But I was happy in the era that I played in and the people I played with. And yeah, I'm fortunate for those opportunities for sure. I wouldn't want to play in the day and age the game's in now, which is a whole other episode. So
yeah, that'll be a very extensive one. Don't worry.
But my next one's kind of short and sweet, because eventually we're, going to go into an episode about the Olympic stuff. But my last one comes after like when I had kids, right? So I found out that I was pregnant with Maddie when I was playing over in Japan in 2013. I was playing professionally over there. And kind of scary finding out you're pregnant in another country. You're not married yet. I was engaged. I knew I wanted to be with Andrew forever. And obviously it's scary when you're alone in another country. You find out you're pregnant. You're like, oh shit, like I'm letting everyone down. That was scary.
Yeah.
But once I took that year off, I think the coolest thing that I can look back on is like I went back to play that 2014 team in the MPF.
Right.
Maddie was 6 months old. I had her in December, and I was back in May doing the spring training stuff. And then June, July, August was with the USSSA Pride. Being able to do it with a 6-month-old baby and maybe not understand the grind that your body went through the last year. And, I had a tough pregnancy. I gained a lot of weight. Maddie was a big baby. I didn't lose a lot of that weight that I should have to put myself in the position to be the best pitcher and athlete that I needed to be, but I also didn't know. So I look back on that 2014 after having Maddie, and then I look back at this last Olympic run in 2020 where I had the 2 kids and had made that decision to go back in the summer of 2017 to try out for 2018 to make that Olympic run. And I knew, because I had experienced it in 2014, like, shit, I have to be so much better with attention to detail on my body, the core, the work, with less time than everyone else. Because, we didn't know Lauren Bay, Regula, was going to be coming back, who had kids. But, I knew that at the end of the day, my time is limited because my kids are number one, and my home life, and I was working with ESPN. So maximizing the time that I have to be the best version of myself for the team was my priority day in and day out.
Yeah.
And I can look back on the run that eventually an episode will definitely get into detail with about the Olympics. But, I could hang my hat on how proud I was for that commitment to myself. And knowing that, you can look at having kids and being like, oh, I'm never going to be the same. My body's never going to be the same. I can't be the same competitor.
Yeah.
Because it's just different. But the one thing that I realized with having kids was that it made me an even greater,
better competitor.
Yes, to so many levels. Because of the work and how hard I knew I needed to work to be great, the example I needed and wanted to set for them.
Yep.
And I think knowing how hard, and even thinking about that 2010, when I told you I walked across that stage and it was the hardest year of my life, the pressure I felt in that moment and that run, having kids and a family and thinking that going on the field and pitching is hard, it's not hard, right?
Right.
So
puts things in perspective. Yeah.
it opened my eyes to this loving the game more than I ever thought I could in that last Olympic run with my teammates. And I was fortunate enough to go to the Olympics with, there was 4 of us that went in 2008. So there was 13 years in between 2 Olympic games, 2 kids. And I think the coolest thing is just being able to look back and be proud of the work.
Yep.
We're never guaranteed the highlight at the end. We're never guaranteed the Olympic medal or
right.
But I will say, nobody's going to work harder than me. And I've
Yep.
always used that to my advantage, because the competitive advantage that you give yourself is what allows for you to thrive in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I knew I needed to do, and lost some friends because of it. My husband and I had a tough time because of it. But at the end of the day, no one's going to understand why we do what we do, or why we make an Olympic run, or why we choose to go back and do that, because you got to be a little sick up here, because it's the hardest thing that you'll do. It's not glamorous.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to understand why you want to go to your second Olympics and train alone a lot and sacrifice time with loved ones, and the list goes on. But I did it because I can do hard shit.
Yeah.
And college taught me that, and having kids taught me that. And like, that almost was the cherry on top of the cake for my career. You know, people ask, like, what's better, winning a national championship or that Olympic run? Like, both are unique stories
In their own way. It's a different, it's not the same. It's a different, they're good for different reasons. One's not better than the other. It's like, it's like asking you, like, which kid you love more. Like,
yeah,
I love them for different reasons. I would never pick one over the other. Like, they're different. Yeah, for sure. But like, too, like physically, like you're saying, physically coming back and doing that, but also like mentally and emotionally too, because that's such a different perspective of having, you're constantly going through this stuff in your head. You're trying to be in the game. You're trying to be competitive. But at the same time, like, as moms, like, we don't always turn that off.
Yeah.
Like, did we forget something? How are they doing emotionally? Are they okay? Like, are the lunches packed? Are they at the right place? Did somebody remember to pick them up? Like, we can't turn that off. So you had that on top of everything else that you needed to do to be that competitor. So I think that sometimes goes unnoticed. Physical thing is amazing. Obviously, that's a huge piece of it, because we're putting our bodies through all this crazy stuff. But I think emotionally and mentally, like, people need to put a little more emphasis on what that takes as a woman. Like you said, like a female athlete, like, that's different for sure.
Yep. What a grind.
And I mean, COVID on top of that, but we'll definitely like dive into that when we talk about the Olympics. Like, on top of everything else, there was like a pandemic going on too. So
yes, there was.
Yeah.
Peace.
And then my last moment was, so I was the assistant coach at UC Davis for about 3 seasons. Again, COVID, so it was kind of complicated. And I was really excited to coach with that team, because the coaching staff was Coach Erin Thorpe. She's still there. She had coached at Boise State when I was at UH. Okay. So we had competed against each other. I was a player. She was still coach. We were both from Southern California. So we had a lot in common. She had 3 kids. I had 3 kids at the time. So she totally understood like where I was coming from. She was super supportive about everything. And then I met the other assistant coach, Amy Kleiss, and we just all gelled really well. It was super great. Worked well with my schedule, but we were in the Big West, and lo and behold, Hawaii's in the Big West. So we didn't get to play in the first year because of COVID, but the second year, what ended up being my last series as a coach at the Division I level was at Hawaii. On my field. Like, it was like this huge, like what do they call, like full circle moment. It was like coaching against my team on my field, like as a coach. Like, it was just so cool. And I had my youngest with me, so I traveled that season. I traveled with Charlie, so she was born in September 2020, so I had her at every away series in 2021. So we couldn't fly because of COVID, so we were on bus rides to SoCal, Fullerton, Northridge, and she came with us and would ride the bus with us, and I'd have family meet us out there. And then in Hawaii, like, my old coaches and friends watched her for me, and she got to hang out in the equipment room with like our equipment manager, who, you know, was the same as when I was there. And the Hawaii coaching staff hasn't changed in years. Bob's been there. I think this is his 35th season. So him and Dee have been together this whole time. So it's the same staff. Lons is there. Like, it was so cool to have that moment of like, yes, we beat them. So that was like a whole different, I was like very conflicted. I was like, like, it's like this weird, like, internal feeling. But I think that was a big moment for me, because yes, I walked away after that from coaching, which was really, really hard for me, because I loved it and I was good at it. Like, I know that I was good at it, and that was a scary feeling, but I knew that it was the right decision for my family, because coaching is not super conducive to having kids. And I didn't want to be that person that always had to pick between my games and my kids' games.
Yeah.
And that was super hard for me because I was so excited that I got this position
Yeah.
and to coach with Aaron. And it was such a good situation, but like it ended up being the best thing for us. We moved to Texas. So it was like it all just fell into place the way it was supposed to.
Yeah.
And now I get to do the commentary, which is great. It keeps me in the loop. But
Yeah.
that was definitely a full circle moment, was coaching against Coach Bob was like my last series as a coach. So
Yeah. Dang, that's special. I've loved learning about you a little bit. I mean, we like know kind of the surface level things of like our athletic careers, but I think the more we get to like do this and like deep dive into some like really cool topics, like, I don't know, it just allows for you to evolve too as people and like learn like how you tick is maybe different than me on the field. And that was the coolest part about playing at the collegiate level, like understanding and learning like, hey, your teammates may not tick the same way that you do. How
Right.
can I be able to still love and give them what they need and they can give me, because I'm a different competitor than them? And that's what makes, you know, the coaching piece, my daughter's team, like I have so much fun with it. I love being able to just give back and help. And gosh, I think I'm just so jazzed that we get the opportunity to do this, because I do feel like we can cover some things that can maybe help people that feel a certain way and give them a little bit of advice of things that have worked for us. And yeah, the options are endless.
Yeah. And just like talking, I feel like sometimes just hashing it out with other people, like with obviously each other who gets a lot of what we've gone through.
Yeah.
We get a lot of that struggle. We understand a lot of what we've been through. And now it's like, yeah, we're getting a little older, you know, we're getting up there, but there's some situations too that I feel like have really shaped me as a parent too. And it's like, I know that without that background that I have from playing and coaching and going through all of that, I don't know if I would have the acumen to make that decision as a parent. And I love that I have that, but like I want to be able to share that with other people, because it's a totally different landscape in youth sports than like what we went through. So it's like identifying that and then talking through it and like how could we address it if it was our kids. And I mean, we're obviously like strong mama bears, I'm sure. So it's like we're super fiercely protective of their experiences and being able to provide those opportunities for them. But it's also like I mean, I'm like one of the loudest. I know I'm loud. I know I'm crazy on the sideline sometimes, but like it comes from a place of understanding. Like I get the game. I understand what's happening. I'm competitive. I've been in athletics. Like it's just a different level of like, okay, that's right, that's wrong. Like we need to address this. And I love that we have that perspective to give them and talk them through and get through the emotions and stuff. So I am excited to like dig into that too.
Yeah. I went into Maddie's room last night and I'm like, hey, it's a hell of a day. We were there for 11 hours. Like I said, there's two things that I need you to be able to control. I don't give a shit if you make mistakes, but like you being able to control your attitude in the moment, number one, and you being able to connect with your teammate when you mess up, number two, right? Like there's such a strong force to when you fail, how I react. What is my next? Can I connect with the pitcher and be like, hey, that's my bad. I got you. Roll me a ground ball. And what I'm noticing and what I saw was like just this internal, like defeated feeling. And to me, I don't care if kids mess up, but I am wanting them to understand like next pitch mentality. How do we move on? How can you want the ball again and crave the ball?
Learn from it. Right. Exactly.
You know, so it's just maybe not the everyday parent that coaches their kids in youth sports may understand that moment. But for me, it's like, hey, that's the biggest thing that I'm seeing. Because no matter what, you're playing a game of failure, you will mess up. But at the end of the day, the great ones know how to navigate that piece. What am I saying to myself upstairs? Where am I going with this? With the ball comes to me next, am I willing it to come to me? Or am I like, oh shit, don't hit it to me? Like these are the things that I'm trying to help a 10-year-old understand and process, to build yourself up in those moments of failure, to know that I'm okay.
The world's not going to end.
No.
It'll be okay. But like, that's like, even that, for those of you listening, is like a huge nugget, because that is exactly what those college coaches are looking for too. They want to see not if you can hit the ball, if you can run. They know that you can do all of that stuff. That's what puts you at the same level as everybody else. It's what you do in those moments of failure that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Are you going to come into your dugout and throw your helmet across the thing? Are you going to like start yelling at the umpire? Are you ignoring your teammates or blaming people? Like all of those things are exactly what the coaches are looking for.
Yeah.
Are you going to like run out of the dugout and go like talk to mom and like, you know, just not be in the moment? Or are you going to get in there and hype your team up and tell them to pick you up and like move with it? So
it's funny. That's exactly what I said to her. And I'm like, yeah, you're 10. I said, I don't even know if you want to play this game in college, but I will say if there's college coaches that are there, their eyes are glued on you after you make that mistake. What's your move?
1,000%.
But these are all things, you know, that'll be cool for us to talk about in the future. This was fun.
It was good. I think we got it all out too. I think we did a good job of like, these are the big moments for us. And I mean, we could pick a bajillion of them, but those are kind of like the big pivotal ones that I feel like played a big part in who we are now.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys got something from that and we'll be able to kind of expand and grow on that. Our plan for next episode is the Olympics.
Yeah.
That's our next topic we're going to tackle. We kind of want to talk about like the difference between like when you've competed in them versus like what we saw this last year versus what's to come, like LA 2028, like what we're seeing there and how we're feeling about that.
Yeah.
But if you guys have questions, comments, topics you guys want to talk about, please let us know. Shoot us a DM. You can comment on one of our posts. We'll see it. But thanks for listening. We're excited to do this with you guys, and we look forward for what's to come.
Yeah, let's go. Rise and grind. Coming in hot.
All right. Have a good one, guys.